Why don't Muslims speak out against terrorism? This is as much a statement as it is a question. It implies that Muslims do not denounce terrorism because they implicitly support it. This is a fallacy. According to the Pew Research Center, no more than 7% of the Muslim world is sympathetic to the Salafis, Wahhabis, and Takfiris, those heretics known in the West as radical Islamists, jihadists, and Islamo-fascists. According to the study of terrorism and responses to terrorism, there were 2,400 terrorist attacks on U.S. soil between 1970 and 2012. Only 60 of these were committed by so-called Muslims. According to the FBI, 94% of terrorist attacks committed on U.S. soil between 1980 and 2005 were committed by non-Muslims, and active terrorists represented only 1,000% of the population of the Muslim world. On the other hand, as of November 2015, there were roughly 1,000 active FBI investigations of ISIS-affiliated individuals ongoing in the United States. These people are allowed to walk among us. Shouldn't we arrest and prosecute the known terrorists who are already here before we think about excluding all immigrants from 6 Muslim nations? I know full well that the vast majority of Christians object to terror and mass murder committed in their name by groups such as the KKK, the Lord's Resistance Army in Uganda, and the Christian militia in the Central African Republic. Likewise, the vast majority of Muslims object to terror and mass murder committed in their name. Muslims speak out against terrorism again and again. Muslims scream and shout. However, their voices are silenced by the mainstream media. How many people have heard of ISNA's Muslim Code of Honor? Signed in September 2007, it denounces extremism and violence. How many people have heard of the Covenants Initiative? Inspired by the covenants of the Prophet Muhammad with the Christians of the world, this international movement of Muslims is committed to protecting persecuted Jews, Christians, and Muslims, and has been at the forefront of the ideological war against ISIS. How many people have heard of the Letter to Baghdadi? The Letter to Baghdadi, released in September of 2014, is a meticulously detailed refutation of ISIS. It was signed by over 100 of Islam's leading scholars and personally directed to the leader of the fake Islamic State. How many people have heard of the Aman message? Issued in November 2014 and signed by 200 Islamic scholars from over 50 countries, it calls for tolerance in the Muslim world. How many people have heard of the statement from the Organization of Islamic Cooperation? Released in 2014, it declares that the Islamic State has nothing to do with Islam and has committed crimes that cannot be tolerated. How many people have heard of the fatwa from al-Azhar? Issued in 2014, it states that ISIS is a danger to Islam. How many people have heard of the statement from the Arab League? Released in 2014, it denounces the crimes against humanity carried out by ISIS. How many people have heard of the condemnations made against ISIS by CARE? Since 2014, they have repeatedly condemned ISIS as un-Islamic and morally repugnant. How many people have heard of the declaration made by the Muslim Council of Great Britain? Released in 2014, it affirms that violence has no place in religion. How many people have heard of the fatwa published by the Fiqh Council of North America? Issued in 2014 and signed by 126 leading Muslim scholars, it asserts that the actions of ISIS are in no way representative of the teachings of Islam. How many people have heard of the joint Sunni-Shiite fatwa issued by 100 UK imams? Released in 2014, it describes ISIS as an illegitimate and vicious group. How many people have heard of the statement issued by the Muslim Public Affairs Council? Published in 2014, it condemns ISIS and calls upon Muslims to stand against extremism. How many people have heard of Nahdlatul Ulama? It is the largest Islamic organization in the world, representing 50 million Indonesian Muslims. In 2014, the NU launched a global campaign against extremism and Wahhabism. How many people have heard of the jihad that was declared by the Muslim Youth Group in the UK? In 2015, a group of young Muslims declared an ideological holy war against extremists and terrorists who hijack Islam, asserting in no uncertain terms that groups like ISIS have no link with Islam or the Muslim community. How many people have heard of the mass fatwa against ISIS? Issued in December of 2015, it has been signed by over 100,000 Muslim clerics from the Indian subcontinent and endorsed by over 1.5 million Muslims. How many people have heard of the Marrakesh Declaration? Issued in 2016 and signed by hundreds of major Muslim leaders, it expresses their collective commitment to the cause of human, civil, religious, and minority rights in Muslim countries. Last but not least, how many people have heard of the excommunication of the Takfiri Salafis? A group fatwa issued at a conference in Chechnya in 2016 by, among others, the Grand Sheikh of al-Azhar, the highest authority in Sunni Islam, explicitly declares that Salafi Takfirists, Daesh, the so-called Islamic State, and similar extremist groups are not Muslim. Literally hundreds of other examples could be cited. I can assert with confidence, dismay, and despair that 99% of non-Muslims are unaware of these efforts. And though millions of Muslims have participated in them, countless millions more have never heard of them. This ignorance is a scandal. I call upon all Muslims who are opposed to ISIS, particularly those with sufficient resources to influence the mass media, to dedicate themselves to the publication of these and all other Muslim struggles against Daesh and their co-conspirators to the four corners of the earth. I also call upon our non-Muslim brothers and sisters to share this information with their family, friends, and communities. Millions upon millions have spoken out. It is up to all of us to spread the word. I am Dr. John Andrew Morrow, unapologetically Muslim for the Covenants Initiative.